Hi guys, welcome to Chess Bootcamp. I'm just going to share 3 quick games with you, and this is purely for fun and enjoyment. So I had one of my buddies, ConfusedGhoul from Italy, rated just under 1000, popped up on chess.com and challenged me to a 15 minute, 3-second interval rapid game. And so we actually ended up playing 3 games, and what's interesting is that in each game I play a different kind of gambit. So just sit back and enjoy these because it's all good fun. Okay, so the first game I'm playing with the white pieces, e4, e5, and I throw in the Danish gambit. I love this opening. Very, very sharp. So 2 d4, pawn takes d4, c3, pawn takes c3. Now bishop to c4, and pawn goes ahead and thinks, why not? In for a penny, in for a pound, I'll take on b2 as well. So temporarily 3 pawns up, but it doesn't last long. So we've got bishop takes b2, and now an error from black. So d5 is actually hit by 3 pieces at once. So that pawn is not going to survive. So I capture with the bishop, and here this brings up a common pattern that you always need to look out for and be aware of, right? Which is the idea of the bishop sacrifice on f7. So we see this in things like the Haxo Gambit. We see it even in the Tennyson Gambit as well. And one of the things one of the big risks here is that the king is actually the only defender of the queen at the start of the game. So if you can throw in something like that and persuade the king to move away from the defense of the queen, if the d-file's open, boom, you can lose your queen. That's the big issue. So black now plays knight to f6, which looks reasonable. It's hitting the bishop, hitting the pawn. But now bishop takes f7, and the king can't recapture. Right? The king can't recapture because then the queen will fall. So the king is fought. Now my opponent figures this out, which I congratulated him for, that king e7 is the only move. But now bishop to a3, and the king is just in a world of pain. So really can't take the pawn because queen takes queen, can't go to here or here or here or here. Okay, so the king has no squares. I think the only legal move is going to be queen to d6, and that would lose the queen. So at this point my opponent resigned the game. Let's move on to game number 2. Okay, so here ConfusedGhoul is playing with the white pieces and opens with e4, e5, knight to f3, and can you guess, I go for knight to f6, the Petrov, and hoping that we would have knight takes e5, we do. Knight to c6 now, the Stafford Gambit. If you want to know about this, then follow Eric Rosen's videos. He's done an awful lot of work on the Stafford, and it's really, really dangerous. So we have knight takes and d takes. So now what this gives us is a semi-open file right in front of my queen. Okay, so I've got both bishops and the queen are now able to get out into the board at will and cause havoc, and very often they do. So again we have knight to c3, and now bishop comes out to c5. So we are eyeing up this vulnerable square. Bishop out, and now bishop to g4, attacking the queen. The bishop is defended by the knight. f3 hits the bishop, and now queen to d4. So white can't capture the bishop because look, bang, queen to f2. It doesn't matter whether the pawn's there or not. It's an instant checkmate. So that cannot be allowed. The only good way to defend, queen to e2. Now the bishop retreats. Pawn pushes forward to d3, protecting the bishop, and I castle long, giving me a rook backing up my queen on the d-file as well. Bishop comes out, and I centralise my other rook to e8. Pawn comes forward. Now clearly that pawn cannot take the knight because it would hang the queen. So I manoeuvre my knight round anyway because I realise that I've now got 1, 2, 3 attackers on this pawn, and it's only defended twice, defended by the bishop and the queen. White does not make the same calculation and just pushes a pawn forward to g3. So I capture with my knight. Now clearly the threat is something like knight takes either of these pawns, coming with check and a discovered attack on the queen, and that would be catastrophic. So the queen moves out of the way. Knight now comes in, grabs the pawn with check, and the king moves quite correctly to f1. Had the king gone here, then there could have been a discovered attack, moving the knight there, putting the king in check, and then winning the queen on the next turn. So that was pretty much forced. And now g5 comes to attack the bishop. That pawn is defended by the knight on f3, and bishop now comes back down to c1, but this is terrible because rook now to e1 is a stunning checkmate. That's in 15 moves. So another pretty quick game. Game number 3, however, is even quicker. So, and I decide, well, in for a penny and for a pound, let's go for this. So e4, e5 again for the third game in a row, and now I decide to pull something out that I've never ever played. The King's Gambit, one of the classic romantic openings, but I've never studied it. I don't know what to do with it, and the game ends very, very quickly with f6. So here black moves the forget about it pawn to f6, and the game finishes pretty much pawn takes, queen to h5. Okay, so at this point, obviously black's in check. The queen's also forking the pawn. There are only 2 legal moves for black on the board, I think. We've got g6, which would actually drop the rook, because queen captures pawn with check and then takes the rook. And the other one is king to e7, and again, queen probably capture the pawn and with check. But there's also ideas of maybe bringing the dark squared bishop in as well. So, and black actually resigned they're on move 4. So yeah, just wanted to share that with you. Just a bit of fun. 3 very different gambits, 3 pretty short games. Yeah, I have to say I love my gambits. It's all good fun, and you know why do we play chess if not to enjoy ourselves? All right. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.